365 Days of Horsemanship, day 143. Day 143 and 144 actually, because yesterday I did come up. Lawrence had the farrier, which just ate up all my time yesterday. I really wanted to have a good conversation with him about what I'd spoken to Rachel Evans, the podiatrist, about regarding the cartilage around the sort of caudal aspect of Lawrence's hoof and foot. And I had a really good conversation with him actually. So that was good, but it definitely just took some time. We're sort of essentially working on trying to prevent what's happening is because the shoes are going on. He has quite weak cartilage there anyway, is the sort of theory that we're working with. And barefoot helps that blood supply to the cartilages. It helps them to maintain stability. And then when you put the shoes on, one of the disadvantages of the shoes is that it does kind of take away that sort of foot to ground contact, which exacerbates the problem, and his heels are sort of dropping back. And then if this is sort of like the floor, you would expect the angle to be sort of like this at the back of the hoof, and it's sort of collapsing towards the ground like this, which is not what we want. But at the moment we need to keep the shoes on because of the sensitivity of his soles. So sort of a bit of a cycle, but so I had a really good conversation with him about that, and we're going to we've just moved the shoes back a little bit on the foot to see if we can support the foot to remain a little bit more upright. So we'll see how that works. So it was a good day. Definitely he struggled a little bit being tied. One of the other horses struggled a little bit. I think that maybe one of the other horses in his herd has got potentially a new love interest, and that is what has bothered him, and that kind of set Lawrence off, and it was interesting just trying to, definitely I could see how kind of supportive leadership, keeping him busy while he's tied, so brushing him, giving him things to think about, things like that definitely helps him. But it doesn't last. It'll help him while I'm doing it, but then the effects wear off pretty much as soon as I've finished. So yeah, so that was interesting, definitely. I wish I'd had a little bit more time to leave him in a better place yesterday, but I just didn't have it. And that's okay. Not every day is perfect. Today, though, I have had two really interesting sessions. Had a really interesting session with Lawrence. I talked a little bit yesterday more in detail about the itching pattern that Elsa has for reducing concern about itching. And this is something that I've seen from her before, I've spoken with her about before. And prior to going to Elsa's, Lawrence and I obviously had this big scratching issue where I just felt like I was scratch machine, and he was just pushing me about a little bit and just seeming to get more and more concerned about it. And seeing that horse on the last day of the clinic, that Arabian who just picked up the pattern so quickly, was something that I really wanted to come back and try with Lawrence today. I would say it went quite well. I think it's one of those things where it's just started raining, so I might walk and talk. I think it's one of those things where, every horse and every situation is different, and even though the pattern is the same, if the emotion the horse is feeling and the psychology behind the behaviours is different, then that might affect what behaviours you choose. And also depending on whether it's getting worse or getting better, right? So basically, I came up, I took the rug off because he had his rug on, and he sort of like, initially there was a little bit more standing around, which was, I was appreciative of. I was able to do some flow with him while he was just standing. And so I started playing with this scratching pattern. And basically what I did was I would hold out my hand for the nose to hand, because that's the cue for, can I make this easier for you? Would you like me to do something that you like a sort of like, are you feeling stressed? So it's like, would you like me to scratch you, as a form of, are you feeling stressed? So I'm saying to him, would you like me to scratch you? And he doesn't really respond to me and just does what he normally does and moves his body into me to tell me that he's stressed. But we're trying to deprogram that and reprogram asking with the nose to hand before we try to scratch. So I would just walk past him, nose to tail, come back around and ask again. And this definitely took a few times for him to get used to. He definitely didn't learn the pattern as fast as the Arabian, but he definitely was getting it towards the later parts of the sessions. That was good. So I played with that a little bit. Then he would touch my hand with his nose, and so then I would start scratching him, but I only had like literally half a breath or half a second, half a breath, and then he would start moving his feet. And what I want is to get ahead of his feet. I don't want him moving his feet around me. I want to move my feet around him, because in dominant leadership, you want the horse to move their feet. But we're not playing in dominant leadership. I'm the passive leader. I need to make the decisions. So therefore, I need to be the one moving my feet. And that's a big change as well. That's a big difference from how I've obviously played with those ideas in the past. And so that was something new as well. And so basically what I ended up doing today was a lot of walking. And I'm still not really sure, because I got to a place where I could scratch him a little bit, and then it was quite difficult to predict when he was going to want me to move. And that's really the keystone of how this pattern progresses into the horse being less concerned about you scratching. Because with the Arabian was sort of like quite happy for you to scratch them in the same place over and over again. And that seemed to work out quite well. Whereas with Lawrence, he likes scratches in lots of different places. So for me to come back and scratch him in the same place is not really going to help his concern, I don't think. So I kind of was trying to interpret where he was trying to move me before I started walking, or as I started walking, and then go straight back to that same place again the second time, or the next time, which was somewhat successful. I think it's difficult because I'm not sure if I should be only scratching him in the one place, or if I should be scratching him in lots of places. We definitely had some good moments where I was scratching him like closer to, like I was scratching him up on his neck, and he would lean his weight one way or another. And when he lent his weight, I would then move like immediately to try to find the next spot. And we did have a couple of good moments where I was sort of moving around him, trying to get ahead of him. And I think that's where I want to be. I think I want to be in a place where he can lean his weight forwards and backwards, like he's rocking and I'm moving and he's rocking himself. I think, and potentially, now I'm thinking about it, because I've only really kind of spoken that into existence literally now, if I'm thinking about the ideal end result, the picture that I want to get to, which is where he's rocking, leading left and right and directing me around his body and I'm moving, then ultimately he's going to associate rocking his body with feeling better. And that's really powerful. That's where I want him to be, because obviously rocking is what comes before moving. So that might work out. If I can get him to a place, you know, where he's rocking his body weight and I'm moving around him and scratching, then he's going to have that positive association with moving his body weight from place to place, which is definitely, I think, probably better for his body than like unpredictable movements, because he's learning to control where his weight is. So that feels good, I think. I wasn't as sure of it when I was doing it as I am now, which is really nice. yeah, the ending of the session wasn't so super with either horse today, but I think it's okay. I think it was part of sort of like a learning journey. With Lawrence, he kind of walked away from me. I went to get his rug because he was rugged when I got him. I'm in a little bit of a debate today because it's quite warm. Like, as you can see, even though it's raining, I'm not wearing anything at all. And I'm pretty sensitive. I'm like Lawrence, especially these days now. I'm not outside all the time. And he's been quite itchy recently as well. So if I can, I'd like him to be naked. I think, I'm a real believer in kind of natural cycles, especially if you're living outside. Like, there's a lot of new grass coming in now, and so there's going to be a lot of sugar, which is a lot of energy. So there's a lot of him to metabolize. He is prone to getting raised pedal pulses at times when there's really high sugars in the grass, really new grass. And additionally, he's been really itchy. So I sort of am like, well, a natural bath where you're going to roll a lot and reintroduce some oils to your skin, combined with, a little bit of metabolism use for all of those sugars that you're eating, might not be the worst thing in the world. He does look pretty good at the moment. So I'm sort of like on the edge of whether to rug him or not. We did rug him yesterday, which I'm happy that I did because there were a couple of thunderstorms today, but it is quite warm, quite muggy. And he didn't then indicate for his rug to be put back on when I left. And so it was a difficult ending because I think because I had the rug on me, it wasn't really, I didn't really feel that we had a nice sort of ending to the session where he felt curious or he did a focus change. I did try to leave it on when he blew out and I left then. So it wasn't bad, but I don't know if it was the best point in the session, but maybe it was really the only point in the session that there was going to be without me hanging around with the rug for ages, which is maybe something else that I need to do just to help him to feel comfortable with the rug being around. This rug thing is something that I've definitely played with before. It's quite interesting, actually. And I definitely am not sure, I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest. Basically, a few years ago, this all started, basically a few years ago, I bought one of those rug systems where you have like the outer lining and then you have like two inner fillers that you put in the rug. And I did that basically because I wanted a little bit more flexibility around rugging him that didn't require me to have all these different rugs. And I found that he seemed to be either sort of quite interactive with the process. And so I started trying to see if I could ask him whether he wanted the rug or not. And I found that for quite a few times, him wanting the rug or not did correspond to whether or not I thought he needed the rug or not. And his weight seemed to go quite well with this method, which I've used over a couple of winters. I think it works very well when I'm coming down and offering a liner, because at that point he kind of clearly says yes, where he'll like sniff it and he'll blow out like that he's curious and he feels relaxed at the concept of the liner, or he'll move away, and at that point I know that he doesn't want it. And I'll usually ask him a couple times, which I guess is like insistent leadership, and usually he'll say yes or no. And that does work quite well because he doesn't just say no, he does say yes sometimes. And I think in the winter, he does appreciate the warmth. I think when he's cold, he does, appreciate that extra rug. It's more tricky this time of year when it's kind of like sporadic weather, and it's like a really light rug. It's just a sheet. And I also am debating whether or not I am convinced that horses can make decisions about potential future events, because I think when in the winter, when he's currently cold and I bring the rug, then it's easy for him, based on how he feels in the moment, to make a decision about the rug. But I'm not sure if horses have the cognition to make a decision about something that may or may not happen in the future right now. If horses can tell, like dogs can, when it's going to rain, I think it's likely that he can make an informed decision. But if they can't, I think it's more likely he's making a decision based on how he feels then, which might not be valid for the next 12 hours until I can come and ask him about the rug again. So I'm not really sure if I'm anthropomorphizing or if it does work out. Either way, the answer he gave today was a no. And I considered whether or not I wanted to then sort of use dominant or insistent leadership to put the rug on because I felt that it was better, or whether or not I was happy with that decision. And I thought about it. I thought, I am happy with that decision. I'm going to be up tomorrow. I can see how he looks tomorrow. Can see how he feels. And then I can make a decision sort of based on that evidence, because ultimately it's going to be really warm. It's like 24 this weekend. It's not raining the whole weekend, and it's good in the nighttime. And I was thinking that even if I did put the rug on today, I would come and take it off in the morning anyway. So one lot of rain and a night that's like 14 degrees is fine. So I'm sort of happy with him making that decision anyway, if that is valid. So we're going to see how that goes. I don't know. I'd be interested to know if anyone who's watching has any thoughts on this, if it's something that they've tried before, or if anyone has any, other research or knowledge around the sort of ability of horses to be cognizant around longer periods of time. Because they're pretty reactionary animals, but that doesn't mean they can't. There's definitely some people might say it's quite reductionist. The scientific literature around horses not having a prefrontal cortex, and therefore they can't feel emotions like empathy and jealousy and love in the same way that humans can. I think there's validity in that, but I also think that there's so much about the human brain that we don't know, and there's so much around emotions and consciousness that we don't know yet, that I think it's quite reductionist to say that you're sure that those emotions are only created in the prefrontal cortex. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I'd be really interested to see if anyone else has any scientific research experience, personal experience. Anything would be super interesting. I realize it's like 17 minutes long already, so I'm going to be quick about my session with Mia, which was also interesting. Mia has gone back into the herd, which is really good. It has brought her stress levels up, definitely. I think there's one horse in particular probably who's causing the stress, which is quite a shy boy. He's quite nervous. He's like Lawrence, where he finds it quite stressful meeting horses sort of nose to nose, and he's definitely like a runaway type. He also is quite nervous around humans approaching him as well, and I think Mia doesn't feel very safe around him, and obviously in her position as lead mare, I think she's finding it quite difficult to trust him as a member of the herd, because it's difficult for her to get to know him. And it's difficult for her to get to know everybody because she's so aggressive anyway. So it's a tricky relationship. They're just kind of getting used to each other. And so I came in with my halter hoping I would bring her up and take her into the arena. Didn't really work out. So I was walking for quite a long time. And it got me thinking, because definitely she was sometimes, some days a little hungry in that field, but I don't think it was so much that her stress was really high, and I think when her stress is low, she's curious about me, but that curiosity is not big enough to go past concern like this about the herd. And so I did not get really any focus changes. She also, I think when she's concerned, she's like eating. I tried initially to recognize her ear movements and eye movements. And as I sort of have noticed in the past, sort of checking in again, it was like, yeah, this is concern. The ears and the eyes are moving way too often for me to be able to flow with that. I tried to kind of just move when the ears or the eyes would make sort of like a clear change from one thing to another thing, but I don't really like being in flow with her while she's in concern, because it just doesn't really feel good. I don't really feel like we're connected. I feel like she's doing her thing and I'm being close to her, not really being in a leadership position because she's concerned. So I got walking, and no focus changes happened until she looked up at this new horse and then went towards him with her ears pinned, just a couple of steps just to say, hey, get out my space. And I was thinking, okay, so that's the most important thing for you today, right now. I think that explains some of this. And so then I kind of started playing around with, initially I did a little bit of a workout, a few bits and bobs, did some push-ups, did some squats, because that's kind of what I'd like to try to build into my sessions with her when I am doing a lot of supportive leadership. Firstly, because I kind of don't have time to go to the gym, and that's a great way for me to be efficient and kill two birds with one stone. And secondly, it helps me, I think, to just remain not bored. So did that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Nothing was really getting better. Nothing was really changing. She's just kind of like eating and being stressed. Then I went around this new horse, and I started playing this game of just kind of like catching, but it wasn't like the sort of, wasn't the classic catching game that I'm used to. It was really just about moving past him, coming back around past her, just trying to kind of like be aware, sort of like react to him while also keeping an eye on her. And I think that did help her a little bit. It's difficult to explain what changed because not very much changed, but I felt like the energy was less tense when I was also trying to engage with him as well. Initially, I sort of like tried to have him touch my nose and walk past. That was too much for him. Then every time he would look at me, I would walk past him nose to tail at whatever distance I was at. But then I was thinking about whether or not that was a good pattern or not. And I think that that's sort of teaching him that I think it's teaching him that if he looks at me, I go away, which I think is maybe a good thing. But also when I sort of consider that it's not flow, then I'm not teaching him that I will be in flow with him if he looks at me, that we can be in harmony together. I'm not offering him any harmony. So yeah, so I kind of just played around with, and if I got too close, he would walk away. And so I kind of tried to not push him into concern. And I definitely played around with just finding the edges of his bubble and just being around the edges of his bubble to try not to bother him, trying to react to his focus changes, and definitely saw that he doesn't do very many focus changes either, which probably also stresses me out. So it was an interesting session. Finally, eventually, she looked up at Darcy. I was able to be in flow with her for a couple of breaths, and then I left. Because the thing is, like, I don't want to be in flow with her for too long, because it's not really flow, because she's concerned. So it's like, I want to be with her in that moment when she's looking at Darcy, and then I pretty much want to leave straight away, because that's what I want her to remember. I don't really want her to remember the next moment when she was concerned and I was just standing. So, yeah. So it was good. It was good. I felt good about it. I feel like I have a good, solid plan with both of them. And I feel more confident, actually, about dominant leadership now as well. And I feel more confident that it's okay for me to do dominant leadership as long as the horse feels better afterwards. So tomorrow, I might come and decide that I'm going to do 5 minutes of freedom-based training. Then I'm going to use pressure to change Mia's focus. I'm going to bring her up. I'm going to hopefully try to have good feel and timing and help her feel better by being distracted from being concerned about the herd, and just come and be with me and have me be the leader, and we'll do some stuff and go back, and we'll see how that works. Maybe by tomorrow she'll feel a little bit better about the herd, and she will be able to come with me anyway. She'll be curious enough that she'll feel safe enough to come with me without that dominant pressure. So we'll see. Either way, I feel really good. I feel really clear in my decision making. I feel really confident in my decision making, and I feel confident in what to do when I don't feel confident. and when to change things, and recognizing when I feel like something's not going well, making a new plan, trying something different. I definitely feel that my ability to identify concern, curiosity, and comfort is improving, and that's helping me to make better decisions. So I'm really, really happy. I have some exciting news, but it's been 25 minutes, so I'm going to talk about that another day, maybe tomorrow. But really happy to be back. Really happy to be back.